specifically for a case that has a little bit of controversy around it, I always expect to find a little bit more background on the people involved, but this is all I was able to find on them. So on the day of the incident itself, on August 23rd, 1987, at around midnight, both Don and Kevin left their homes to go hunting. This wasn't unusual for them. This is something that they enjoyed to do. I believe they took a .22 caliber rifle which belonged to one of the boys and a flashlight. They apparently used a deer hunting technique called spotlighting, which was illegal in the area at the time. So from what I understand, you use a strong flashlight to kind of blind or daze temporarily the deers and then shoot them. So that's what the boys were doing at the time, and at around 4 a.m, a 75-car train en route to Little Rock hit something on the tracks. The train driver spotted something on the tracks quite a way back from where the impact actually took place. He said that he sounded the horn multiple times and he applied the brakes. Now, he couldn't stop in time. He tried, but I believe he stopped around a mile. By the time the brakes fully kicked in, it was about a mile after he had hit the boys. He had realised that what was on the tracks were two bodies lying side by side. As he approached them, and all he could do was just sound the horn multiple times. There was nothing else that he could do. The passengers on the train and the driver also stated that the bodies were partly covered by green tarp, so like a green tarp sheet. Not fully covered, but you could see there were two bodies beneath it. But yeah, they were covered. The driver and the passengers reported this to the police immediately, and by around 4:40 a.m. the police arrived on the scene. Interestingly, there was no sign of the green tarp sheet that had previously been covering the bodies. This was not located anywhere, and there is some debate as to whether it existed in the first place. However, there were multiple eyewitness accounts that this was on the bodies at the time of impact. The bodies were recovered, and the state medical examiner, Dr. Malek, ruled that the death was an accident, and that the cause of death was obviously them being hit by the train, and the reason why they were laying on the tracks was due to marijuana intoxication. Dr. Malek claimed that the amount of marijuana found in the boys' bloodstream was the equivalent of them having smoked around 20 marijuana cigarettes each. Some articles state 20 each, some state 20 between them, so either way, a large amount of marijuana was found in their bloodstream, and therefore he basically said that the boys passed out due to being high and were then hit by the train and weren't able to wake up in time to move themselves. witnesses to something, an illegal activity. They were killed to basically keep them quiet, and it is reported that the area itself around the tracks and that section of woods was a known spot for those sorts of drug deals to take place at the time, so this is quite a plausible explanation. And as mentioned, Linda, Kevin's mother, believes that this is what happened to the boys. There are also a number of other conspiracies surrounding this particular case, some of which involve Bill Clinton, but one of the more prevalent conspiracies is around Dan Harmon, who was the prosecutor at the time. He was head of the grand jury in this particular case, and he was later implicated in some drug-related charges of his own. So he was involved with what is believed to have been the cartel at the time, and as mentioned, the cartel did operate in that area. So there's some conspiracy theories surrounding Dan Harmon specifically, given his position with regards to the case, and also the fact that he was actually involved on the other side of the crime, on the drug side of things. There are also witnesses that place Dan Harmon at the scene on the same day, and some even place him with both of the boys. So again, not much is disclosed about this specifically, but we do have witness accounts that place him in the area on the day of the murders. Whether he was involved or not, or whether this was just a conspiracy theory and somebody building on it further to make it sound more legitimate, we don't know, but the witness accounts do exist, and that is all we have on this case. So I wanted to cover it because it is not very well known, and it hasn't had very much coverage or publicity at all. As I said, there is very little, there isn't really no information on the boys themselves, or specifically on this crime. There are various conspiracy theory rabbit holes that you can delve into with regards to Dan Harmon and Bill Clinton and Dr. Malik. But I didn't. I wanted to just keep to the facts and raise the profile of this particular case because it is a cold